The 417 Gamers is a group of board, tabletop, and card gamers in the 417 area code. This is the podcast. Welcome to the 417 Gamer Podcast, episode 29, the one with replayability. From the 417 Gamer group, Nick stops by to join us. In the 4, we talk about 4 games we've been playing recently: Boop the Halls, Tapestry, Black Forest, and Flip 7. In the 1 topic of the show, we talk about replayability. What's important for replayability for us and different elements of replayability. You know, the things. And in the 7, we talk about our most played games. Without further ado, the 417 Gamer Podcast. Welcome to the 417 Gamer Podcast. My name is Rick.
And I'm Andrea.
And we're joined by a guest. Nick, say hello.
Hello.
Nick, you're one of the gamers in the 417 area.
Indeed.
Indeed. So we're having you on here. We're talking about various games, but in the 4, we like to talk about 4 games that we've been enjoying in the 417 area. Andrea, would you like to start us off?
We just acquired the 3rd version of Boop called Boop the Halls.
Yeah.
Which is the Christmas-themed version. They have the original, they have a Halloween version, and they just came out with the Boop. And now they have Boop the Halls. The Halloween version added a little ghost kitty that floats around on the player board and
scares all kitties.
And scares the kitties away. And this Boop the Hall has added, scary, right, Barry? Has added a 3-layered board. So it's tiered. It's got 3 layers like a Christmas tree. And then it also has added little round ornaments. And so there are 2 ways to win. One is to get, 3 ways to win now. You can get 3 of your adult cats in a line, or you can get all of your adult cats on the player board. And now a 3rd way to win is to capture all 3 of your opponent's Christmas ornaments. So every time you start, you have to have at least 1 Christmas ornament on the board, and it'll remain on the board until either you or an opponent knocks it off the board with your kitty, just like a cat would. It is pretty impressive, right, Barry? Sorry, guys. The only thing that I didn't like about the 3D board is it is hard to see the far side of the board.
Yeah.
And you actually ended up winning the first time we played because I didn't realize one of my ornaments had fell down that side of the board and was 1 step from falling off the board, which means you would have won. And you knocked it off and won, and I
sure did.
I didn't see it over there. So we'll have to figure out a way to position the board so that you can see all the way around. We need to work on that.
Well, we've got one of those lazy Susans that you got off of Pampered Chef that we've talked about so many times, putting a piece of wood on it for a player board that we put in the middle, because there's several games that we like to play, like that you really want to be able to reach the opposite side of the board, and if you could elevate it to where your player board, if you have a player board, it's off underneath the board and you can spin it around, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
And I actually saw one over the summer that was kickstarted, but they wanted a little bit more than how much I was willing to spend when we already have the materials to make it.
Yeah.
Right.
And my craftiness and my cheapness went, nah, we don't need that. But my craftiness has not sparked enough to actually make the thing.
Right. Well, it would not deter me from recommending this game to anyone. I'll just have to figure out how to sit or just be conscious of that to be able to see the far side of the board. But overall, I enjoyed it just as much as I did the other versions of Boop. It's super cute. The art is different on the cats and the kittens. One's laying on his back playing with an ornament. Just like all the other Boops, its cuteness factor is always on overload.
It is. Designed by, Scott Brady. Designed by Smirk and Dagger Games. And the artist is Kurt Covert, the owner of Smirk and Dagger Games.
Oh.
The second game we'd like to discuss is Tapestry. So Tapestry is designed by Jamie Stegmaier and published by Stonemaier Games. It's another game that's production and its art is off the charts. Mm-hmm. This is a game that I think I need to play the expansions first, but I think I'm kind of falling out of love with it. When I played it, I really enjoyed... I like resource management games. And in Tapestry, it is a civilization-themed resource management game to where each turn, you're either spending resources to push your pieces up these little tracks. You have technology, you have exploration, science, and... what's the last one? There's 4 tracks. Anyway, if you do one of those things, or if you...
Culture.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So you push your pieces up those tracks, or if you don't have any more resources, or if you want to hang on to resources, you can go into your next era. If you do that, you activate your faction's ability, you go through income stages, get a little points, and go into the next era. I really enjoyed it for the longest time. We played it at 4, and it was good. But I've been saying it for a while. Our collection is just packed full of games, and good doesn't cut it anymore. It has to be great and or do something on our shelves better than something we already have. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we've gotten some games this year that have been really, really good that I would rather have in our collection than it. But I have not played the expansions, and I have all 3 of them. So I kind of want to play at least an expansion or 2 before I give it the final heave-ho.
Right. Yeah, Tapestry is one that I've just grown to really not like. It's the same kind of thing where the first few times I played, I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
Kind of... It doesn't really feel too much like a Civ game to me as much as I would want it to, but like the mechanics were cool. Mm. My biggest issue with it, I don't know if you guys even know this, there's all this errata for like the redone leaders.
Oh yeah.
And it's so drastic. Like there's one where you start with 50 points. Like that's the way they errated the leader because it was so bad. And it's just like, I don't know, it just made me feel like I was playing a prototype every time I played it by then because I was looking that up to try to play it the most balanced and just, I don't know. I mean, I know if you don't really care about that aspect of it, it's not a big deal, but it always just felt off to me for that.
Yeah.
No, I knew that, but I got to the point where I enjoyed the gameplay so much that I forgave it, and if I got a bad faction, that means I was going to have to try and play that faction to the best of its ability. And there's some factions that I'll get that aren't my playstyle and I just don't like, period. But at the same time, that forces me to change the way I play, and I kind of enjoyed that aspect of it. And just do the best I can with what I had. Right. But, like you said, at this time, I think I need a couple more plays, especially with the expansions that I did purchase, before I say it's gone. But I kind of feel like it's going away.
Yeah.
Nick, what have you been playing?
Let's see. Newest game that I've been really into right now is Black Forest.
Yeah.
So that's one of the newer Uwe Rosenbergs. If you know me, you know I love my Uwe's. It's my favorite designer. It might be a spoiler for some future stuff coming up. But, but Black Forest, so this is sort of a Glass Road 2.0. Kind of one of his earlier games, Glass Road. And what's interesting is this was actually how, when he was designing Glass Road, like it looked a lot more like Black Forest at first.
Yeah.
So the aspect that it takes from Glass Road is that you have these 2 resource wheels. All right. And on the wheel, there's a dial on there, and it has the numbers on either side of them. And you have your little tokens that are on the wheel, and that denotes how much you have of each resource. And so whenever you gain a resource, you move the piece around the wheel. But the trick is anytime the right side of the dial is open, it automatically turns. So it spends all the resources that are to the right of it, and it gives you one of everything that's to the left of it. And so that's the main mechanic that it takes from Glass Road. And Glass Road, he was like, this is just a cool mechanic. I'm going to make a game solely based on this, and there's not much else going on. So Black Forest is more, you have that aspect going on, but then there's this interesting worker placement-esque type thing going on where there's all these different spots on the board. I guess I don't know if I'd call it worker placement exactly, but kind of...
It's like action selection, but it's got a twist to it.
Yeah, it's got a twist to it. So, I mean, you are blocking spots, but you only have one worker, and you have to pay to move to these different spots that give you different actions. And all these actions, I mean, it's just all resource conversion. Convert this to that, convert this to that. You are building a little manor or estate So you're building some buildings on there. They're going to score different points that cost all these different resources. And then one of the things I really like about it is these jobs pop up. It feels like a little quest.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the feeling I get whenever I play this game, is that it's almost like when you're playing a video game and it has like, all right, this is what you should do, this is what you should do next. And it feels that way where like, oh, this job pops up. Let me gear up to try to face that job. And then also you get that on a small level with the resources, because you'll look at your wheel and be like, okay, if I want to turn my wheel, I need coal. How do I get coal? You look around for some place to get coal. Okay, I need brick. How do I get brick? And you just have this whole chain of events and it kind of makes like a little quest for you. Like, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this, and it's, I don't know, it's just a very satisfying game. I played it a couple times and I've really liked it, and looking forward to playing it some more.
Nice. The last game we're going to talk about is a lot lighter than that. We're going to talk about Flip 7. Flip 7 is designed by Eric Olson. It is published by The Op, a.k.a. USA Opoly. Flip 7 is kind of a blackjack-ish style game. When you start the game, one player will be the dealer, and that player will deal everybody a card. Then they'll come back around and ask each player if they would like another card. Yep. Cards are worth their face value. There are 12 12s, 11 11s, 10 10s, so on and so forth. The cards go from 1 to 12. The way you bust is if you duplicate a number already in your stack. So, yeah, you might have got a 3, but there's only so many 3s in the pile, so hitting on a 3, pretty good. A, also you want more points, and B, there's not many 3s. There's also kind of some Uno-style cards. So there's a flip 3 immediately. So you can either keep that for yourself and play 3 cards immediately, or you can play it on somebody else. And when it comes to their turn, they have to flip 3 cards immediately and potentially bust. There's also a freeze card where you freeze your stack to where nobody can mess with your stack and you're going to score at the end of that round no matter what. Or you can freeze somebody else because they're scoring way too much. Then there's second chances where if you bust, it gets rid of that card and you can go again, stuff like that. But you play the game. There's a couple ways to end the round. Either everybody busts or somebody flips out 7 cards without busting.
There's the Flip 7.
Yeah.
I was wondering where it comes
So if that person hits 7, not only do they score points for all the cards that flipped out, but they also get bonus points for hitting 7 cards. You keep on playing. You just rotate who the dealer is each round until somebody hits 200 points. It feels like a mix-up of a family card game you've played forever with a new shine. I've asked for a couple copies to come in at our friendly local game store because I'm getting one for us to play at the holidays. And I'm probably going to take one on our cruise and just leave it on the ship. But that's Flip 7. So that was the 4 in the 417 Gamer podcast. Why don't we go on to the one topic of the show, which is replayability. The one topic of the show is replayability. Nick, what makes a game replayable for you?
I think the biggest thing is variable setup.
Yeah.
For the most part, although there are plenty of games that I enjoy that don't have the variable setup. But I think a game with some sort of variable setup where you can't necessarily do the same first 4 turns every single time you play,
Right.
Can add to that replayability a lot for me.
Andrea, what makes a game replayable for you?
Well, I like them all to be replayable because once I learn a game, I want to play it again to see if I can do better. I think, as you know, theme is important to me, and then honestly, the harder they are, the more I want to try and replay it because I want to get all the little mechanics figured out.
Yeah.
You know, once you have, this is how you play it, then there's, if you've done this in a different order, or if you'd have gone down that path, you know, you would have gotten a better score and you didn't realize it until you played it the first time. So I like to play it over and over again until I figure out how I have maximized my ability to get the most points.
Understood. I like depth of strategy. Some of your classic chess, Go, some of the newer abstract strategies that we've played. Onitama. What's the other one we played recently? It's in the Gift Project. Czar. Czar is excellent. those where it's mechanically light but strategy dense. Mm-hmm. I think those are fantastic too. And the games that, as you said, if you do the same 4 turns over and over, if somebody recognizes that, they'll head you off and make you either change your strategy or you're going to lose.
Right. I
love that.
Yeah.
You talked about theme. When a game is so thematic that you only get a touch of it and you want to go back for more, that's a really cool one. Like, if you play any of the Legacy games, if you ever play like Pandemic Legacy, it's a fantastic game, and I understand it has a ceiling for replayability, but it makes you want to replay that game that many times, which is, in of itself, I think is pretty cool.
Or it makes you just want to buy the next one.
Yeah. Variable map states.
Yep.
That's a pretty cool one. And that's another game that I talked about how I'm falling out of love with Tapestry. But Clans of Caledonia, when I first played that, and it has a variable board set up, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Then I got my copy and I played it again. I'm like, oh, this is really good. And then the more I played it, I started falling out of love with it. But it still has that variable board set up every time, which I think is fantastic. Me falling out of love with it, I think it was more the play and the interaction of the game. And it had a similar thing that Terra Mystica did. Terra Mystica I started falling out of love with. And Ben in our group, he loves the game. He's brought it back to where I'll play it whenever he wants to. It's just not one of my favorites.
Yeah, I've only played Terra Mystica once, and I don't know, didn't really grab me.
Yeah.
I'll try it again.
Does art make a game replayable?
I don't.
Like a game like Dixit or Mysterium, do you really... Has a game had such great art that you felt, I need to see all the cards, or I need to see all the...
Yeah, but I feel like when I'm enjoying the art, it's almost more like when I'm opening the game, when I'm setting it up and stuff like that is the moments where... Like Dixit, I almost feel like because it's so art-focused, it can lose some of its replayability, because when you start to play it with the same group, you're just referencing the same things every time, and it becomes little codes for each card, and everyone knows what they are, except for the new person that's there, so you still get your points.
Which is why I have 3 expansions in our Dixit.
yeah, same.
It makes that hard.
The same. I think another good... Because I was talking about like variable setup, but then there's another type of games that I like to call like a sandboxy game, that it doesn't have that variable setup, and it's very stagnant, but your amount of choices is insane.
Right.
Just a ridiculous amount of choices you can make on any given turn.
Sure.
And so you're completely open to playing a completely different game each time. Fields of Arle is one that I think does that fantastically, where it's just there's like, I don't know, like 40 actions to choose from every single time on your turn. It's like, I don't know, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Asymmetrical player powers. And how deep you go with that can really determine on how much I want to try the game again. Like, my first couple plays of Root weren't great. My first play was fine. I was the vagabond, I was the raccoon, just going around and messing with people. Then I got stuck with the birds, and I didn't know how to make the birds work. Because, the birds, you start building them up, and then they collapse. And then you build them up, and they collapse. And I couldn't get a symmetry, or, I couldn't get a flow to work for me. Just seemed like right when I was... And I think you have to go in knowing that the birds are going to collapse. But I think it just hit me so hard each time, and it was like, man, I built so much on it, and I got to start all over. But, there's so many different characters, and they all play so differently to one another in Root, that if you had a bad play of Root, give it at least one more play with a different faction if possible, if they'll let you pick. Right. Because after that, we now own Root. And I think we need to own it for Moon City Con convention as far as the lending copy. But I think if you can give it a try and play with the mechanics enough with a faction that plays your style, then you can probably go back and at least salvage a decent game out of the factions that don't.
Yeah, I always say I hate Root, but I've only played it once, And
Which faction did you play?
I don't even remember.
Okay.
Is there like a groundhog one or like a
There might be. If you there's
a
several.
fox, something that lives in holes?
He blocked it out.
Anything?
I think there's a groundhog that kind of
Okay.
burrows and
Yeah, something. I don't know. But I mean, it's more just my own taste in that I don't like to not know what my opponents are doing on their turn.
Gotcha.
I don't like to feel like I'm just doing my own thing and then
Oh,
they're doing
yeah.
their own thing and stuff. And so I think if I were to play Root again, like I just need to read the rule book beforehand so I know how they all work.
Right.
So that I actually know what's going on, because it'd be like, oh, like I remember the Vagabond.
Yeah.
Somebody was playing that and I was like, that's a completely different game. They're just
Yeah.
walking around. What's going on? And then like whatever one it was supposed to be like more war focused, but not as much as this other one. And so I was just going after this one faction that just destroyed me, and I didn't know how they worked at all. And it was
and the
I don't
person
know,
that probably
just-
had that faction knew exactly how to run that faction and just kicked the crap
and it
out
just
of you.
I did not have a good time. But maybe I'll give it another try at some point.
I recommend giving it at least one more, because I had the same. Like I said, I played the Vagabond, didn't know what I was doing, and I took second. And I only took second with that because the other people were just messing with each other. So, and each one would slingshot them past me and hurt each other to where I probably should have been third.
Yeah.
But because two factions battled and let one guy go past them, that they took them both down to third and fourth, and I was just the Vagabond, just kind of meandering around and
Just vibing.
collecting stuff. I collected a pan here and sword there.
Remember you like drop off little tokens, and
Yeah.
I didn't know what those did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Anytime
did
I
stuff
walked
for
around-
other people.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I enjoyed the fact that there was. It was different games for everybody, but yes, I think if I would have understood more what the other factions were doing,
Yeah.
to where I felt like I had some agency, because it's based on the counterinsurgency war game series, but it's kind of enveloped in that cutesy umbrella.
Really, I didn't know that.
Expansions. How important is it that a game has expansions for your replayability?
Well,
Or is that something that kind of detracts for you?
No, I think a lot of the games that we play repetitively either get expansions that we grab up pretty quickly or have a new version like Patchwork or Boop or, Splendor, Azul, that kind of stuff. So I think expansions make up a pretty healthy portion of your gaming library.
Yeah. I've also found in our gaming library that expansions either help revitalize or kill a game for us. We've expanded a few games and it's just...
And then you don't even want to play the base game anymore?
I don't know if
Or
it
what?
makes it too hard to set up.
Yeah.
I don't know if... Because we've got some that are like several boxes.
Right.
And like Descent was that way for a little bit. We have most of the stuff for Star Wars Imperial Assault, and we were going to run a home campaign. But it's so cumbersome to take, I'm not taking it out of the house. So if we can't get people to meet for that game, it's not getting played, period.
Right. Yeah, I'm an expansion junkie. I'll get any expansion. And promos, give them to me.
I love the promos.
Love a good promo. Love a good
A
expansion.
promo when it's just a card or two and it slips in there and it just enhances it a little bit. I love promos.
Oh, yeah, and then you get the promo card while you're playing. You're like, it's fine.
So, with games as they are right now, and so many people play the new hotness and go on, how important is replayability for you?
I think it used to be a lot more important than it is to me now. When I owned 5 or 10 games, like they were all these ones that were super variable. Like Dominion was one of the first ones I had, and every time it's a completely different setup. But now that I own 25 times that amount of games, I'm only getting to a certain game, maybe once or twice a year, and I've already forgotten whatever that 4-turn strategy was
Right.
and stuff. So it just kind of keeps it fresh always, and so it's really not as important to me anymore, really.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Andrea?
Oh, I really enjoy the replayability factor. Like I said, when we get something new, I ask you, can we play it again? Can we play it again? Because I want to get a good grasp of it before I forget, because if in another 6 months, it'll feel like playing a new game again. And I hate that feeling of not knowing what I'm doing, especially when I'm playing with more advanced players.
Right.
So.
For me, it's like the fifth most important thing for me. Gameplay is number one. Number two, theme. I do like theme. I want there to be a theme on there, but it's not as much as gameplay. The gameplay is awesome. Like I said, Czar and some of the abstract strategy or our dexterity game. Theme can. But a good theme can make me forgive subpar gameplay, not mediocre or bad gameplay, but subpar. I don't know. Replayability, I guess maybe it's higher than 5, but as much as I am I like the new shinies.
The new shiny. It's more, I feel like that's way more important to you.
And it's discovering what the new box does. It's like, hey, what's in the new box? What does it do?
Right.
And you're like, ooh, that's cool. What's that box do?
Where's like component quality and artwork?
Component quality is probably 4.
Yeah.
Component quality, because that's one thing I don't like about the Splendor games, is component and art drive me nuts in those games.
So bad.
Because they cost so much for what they are. And we do own a Splendor now, but it's published by Capstone. We own Bus.
Oh, okay.
And I love Bus. And
Like
there's some other games by them that I think are good games. But I'm not going to pay for them, and I can't stand their art.
I know you're a huge Food Chain Magnate fan.
Oh, love it.
Yeah. That's like your favorite game, right?
So much so that if I never play it again, I'll feel better for myself. So that was replayability for us. What's some things that we missed on what's important on replayability for you? Head over to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Hobby Gaming Network. But until then, we hit up to 7. The 7 in this 417 podcast is our 7 most played games. Andrea, what's your 7th most played game?
Well, had you asked me that question just on a random street corner, I would not have been able to answer that question. However, you have this wonderful thing on your phone that keeps track of everything we play.
Yeah, BG Stats.
So if someone is interested in stuff like that, as is Rick, I recommend downloading it.
Yeah.
And BG Stats tells me that my 7th most played game this past year was Point Salad.
Full period. That is your most played game since we've met.
Oh, okay. Since forevers.
Forevers. Forever,
Okay.
ever?
Forever.
Ever.
Point Salad. Yeah, we don't always have this in the game bag, but we do generally. It's a great filler game, and it's great for when we have someone new come out to game night. It's good for friends and family who aren't gamers that just want to play a light game with us. So that's how.
And it's got that go again mentality.
Yeah. Oh, I understand now. Let's go again.
Yep.
So that's why it's so high for me.
Number 7 for me is Patchwork. This is a Uwe game. It's 2-player. You're building a quilt. It has 2 economies, time and buttons. You're spending both. Eventually, you're going to run out of time. At the end of the game, whoever has the most buttons wins. Fantastic little 2-player game. And that is Patchwork at my number 7. Nick, what's your number 7?
Number 7 for me is Terraforming Mars. All right. That's just kind of a go-to. Probably play it about once a month over at our local meta games. Always bring my tricked out copy and terraform some Mars.
You got all of it, don't you?
I do have everything, including the domes. I do have the domes. Yes.
I just don't like Turmoil. I like almost every other part of it. I hate Turmoil.
I actually haven't played with Turmoil yet.
You haven't with the governments?
Yeah, I haven't played with it yet, so I don't.
You might like it.
Yeah.
I just... And we've played it twice now. We played it once with a big, long 5-player game that... It's like, man... And then we played it again at 4, and I was like, I still, But no, the rest of Terraforming Mars, so good.
Yeah, I haven't played Turmoil because most of the time when I'm playing, either there's a new player or someone that's maybe played once or twice, and we're not trying to overwhelm anybody. So, yeah.
My number 6 is Skull. Skull is a kind of a bidding, bluffing, push your luck type game. You have a little mat, and you have 4 coasters. 3 of the coasters have flowers. One of them has a skull. Everybody will put down a coaster to start the game, and then you'll go around the horn, starting with the first player. They can either place another coaster, or they can place the bid. When they start the bidding, everybody either bids or passes, and you're bidding on how many of the coasters you can flip and hit flowers without hitting a skull. If you hit a skull, you'll lose one of your coasters. You play until... if you win the bid, however, you flip your little mat over. If you flip your mat 2 times, you win, or you can win by being the last person standing with coasters. Pretty easy game, pretty fun. That's Skull. Nick, you're number 6.
My number 6 is Arc Nova. All right, so kind of similar Terraforming Mars. Play it in the same realm. It's the same kind of thing. Seem to be playing it about once a month for the last couple of years, and it's just a nice full game. You know, I just feel very satisfied after the game of Arc Nova.
Very nice.
Andrea, your number 6
is Ultimate Werewolf. It's a social deduction game, much like Blood on the Clocktower. The beginning of the game, you're given a card which assigns you a character. You could be a villager, you could be a werewolf, you could be a friend of the werewolf. And then everyone will ask each other questions, and you're trying to suss out who the werewolves are.
Or trying to stay hidden as the werewolf.
Or not let your true identity out.
And lie to your spouse or significant other.
Yeah, we've played many a game where one of us was a werewolf. I'm like, are you lying to me right now?
No.
Oh, but I think you are. But it's a great game for a large group of friends. And we've had many a barbecue or, a backyard bonfire where Ultimate Werewolf has come out.
Yes. Nick, number 5.
My number 5 is Second Chance. All right, so
this is also an Uwe.
Yeah, Second Chance is also an Uwe. It's a flip and write game where you just flip over 2 cards. They've got images of polyominoes. You pick one of them and you draw it on your board. Super, super simple. The reason it's so played is because it's such an easy game to teach people that aren't into games. There's almost no rules at all. And you just try to fill up that board. It's a good time. We got our boards laminated and stuff, so you're just writing there on the markers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Andrea, your number 5.
Splendor Marvel. I know in past episodes I've waxed poetically about how much I love this game because I loved Splendor regular.
I currently have my mic on our Splendor playmat. That way, in case Splendor, I tap the table, it'll hopefully deaden the sound.
But we being my brother and I growing up, we always were big Marvel fans. So to put all the Marvel characters on cards in the Splendor format has been very enjoyable. And Daniel, my brother, is one of the big reasons I've had so many plays.
Yeah. My number 5 is Scythe. This is designed by Jamie Stegmaier, published by Stonemaier Games. I played the absolute crap out of Scythe. When we got it, it was one of the games that so many in our group kickstarted for all of the bits and bobs. Then I got my car broken into, and they took my gaming case at that time, which it said Cajon Drum, because it was a big, tall case that I kept my games in. I'm pretty sure whoever stole that out of my car thought they were getting something way more expensive than what they got. So I had to rebuy all of my Scythe. But Scythe, resource management, area control, little battle-y, little bit of everything in there. I still love the game. In fact, the app went on sale last month, and I bought it, and I think I've already got 68 plays on the app. But that is Scythe at number 5. Let's start going back the other way. Andrea, what's your number 4?
Crokinole, which I'm sure a lot of our listeners have never heard of Crokinole. It's not a normal board game, so to speak. It is a dexterity game that you said it originated in Canada, I believe.
In the 1860s.
It is a very large round wooden board with a hole in the center, and you have these little pucks basically in a shuffleboard style. You try and flick them into the center. If you sink it in the hole, you get 20 points. Closer you get, the more points you get. But at the same time, you're trying to flick your opponent's pieces off of the board. and another easy teach. And we did not used to play this game much because we didn't have a board. A friend of ours had one, and we'd play it when we go over there. And then we got our own, and now we play the heck out of it.
Nick, you're number 4.
I'll keep it with dexterity games. My number 4 is Binho.
Yeah.
All right,
So good.
Binho, just a 2-player game, and looks kind of like a soccer board. You just flick the ball back and forth, trying to get it in the goal. You have these little pegs that are there, and what I always think is fun is if you get a foul, like if you bump the table and stuff like that, you can lose one of your defenders, lose one of the pegs. And
So you have the second edition.
I do have the second edition.
I have the
yes.
first edition where instead it was free kicks.
Oh, okay.
So those pegs are glued in,
Oh, dang.
so they don't remove. But
yeah.
I'm still happy with my copy.
Yeah, no, it's great. But I mean, yeah, that's one. It's such a quick play, an easy play. I got
fun.
my brother-in-law's a big fan of the Inter Miami soccer team, and I got him like a themed board
Oh,
that
nice.
looks all like that and
Oh,
stuff. And
nice.
Yeah.
So I learned of that game because there was like an ESPN article that the Pittsburgh Steelers players were getting in trouble because they were spending too much time in the locker room gambling money on players before getting out to practice.
On the Binho board.
So
Nice.
Binho was potentially going to get outlawed.
I did not know
So they
that.
had to, and I don't know how they resolved it. I just read the ESPN article and I laughed, and then I immediately went to my friendly local game store. I'm like, "Can you get this?" Mm-hmm. And they said, "Yes, we can." So
That's awesome.
my number 4 is Concordia. This is my favorite game of all time, and that's the reason why it's up there. Concordia is designed by Matt Gertz. It's published by Rio Grande Games. It's a dry resource management, card management game. I absolutely understand anybody that doesn't like this game, but the gameplay is elegant. I will rarely turn down a game of Concordia, and as many gameplays as I have of it, it shows, but that is Concordia. Nick, you're number 3.
My number 3 is Blood on the Clocktower.
Hey.
All right, that was mentioned just a
You
little
gotten
bit
it
ago.
played that much.
I have gotten it played a lot. Yeah, so Blood on the
That's
Clocktower, just a fantastic social deduction game where, one of the hallmarks of it is there's no real player elimination. Whenever you're dead, you're still fully a part of the game, can fully talk. You just lose a little bit of your ability, but you're still completely part of the game, so you don't have the problem that Werewolf and Mafia have where the first couple people killed don't even really get to play the game.
Right.
Yeah.
But they get to eat.
But they get to eat, yes, if there's food.
Right.
That's the thing.
Right, yeah.
And so you have to play with food if you're going to play with
That's
it.
true.
But, and so Blood on the Clocktower has that. Everyone gets a special ability. There's a lot of misinformation that gets spewed there. I actually enjoy running the game much more than playing it, and I counted those in my plays and whatnot. But yeah, that puts it at number 3. Any convention, any get together, I'm always trying to get some Blood on the Clocktower going.
Yeah.
Have you ran any of the ones at Village Meeple?
I haven't ran any at Village Meeple.
Okay.
Yeah, I know they've been doing that. I would like
They've
to at
had
some
to
point.
cancel a couple of them, and I know
Okay.
scheduling and all that stuff, but I didn't know if you were helping run any of those or not.
No, I was thinking about it and probably will at some point.
Yeah.
Just have it.
My number 3 is Ultimate Werewolf. Andrea already talked about this social deduction game. Just like Blood on the Clocktower, though, this is very much moderator dependent. Moderator can make or break a game of Werewolf. And it's very forgivable because it's a social interaction game, and if somebody's, and they're trying, it's their first game, give them a break. But Werewolf is the majority that knows very little to nothing, and the minority that has the information. And can they get away with, bamboozling the town? And a lot of times they can. Mm-hmm. But love playing it. Like you said, we've had many nights where we've gone over to friends, especially Catherine. She's ran quite a few werewolves. Mm-hmm. Bonfires, chili or hot dogs or burgers or whatever she's cooked that evening. She's a fantastic hostess.
Yeah.
Andrea, you're number 3?
My number 3 is Splendor Duel. I remember when this came out, we already had regular Splendor and Splendor Marvel, and you're like, we do not need a third Splendor game. And I don't remember why we ended up getting it, probably because I asked you to.
Yeah.
But man, we have just played the heck out of this thing.
We have, to the point where it's past Marvel Splendor for you.
Yeah, it's my number 3 game. But it's so enjoyable. It's just a 2-player game, obviously. It's Splendor Duel. But the mechanics are different enough and the board's different enough that it's able to keep our attention for replayability, very much.
It has more interesting decisions more often than a 2-player game of regular Splendor,
True.
in my opinion. What was that? That was your number
3.
3. So then we'll go with Nick, your number 2.
So for these last ones, I was going with what I have in the app, but I know that these two would be my top ones if I was counting them for my entire gaming career.
Right.
I've only been doing it for the last 3 or 4 years.
Sure.
So I would say I know my number 2 is definitely Dominion.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I've played this hundreds of times. I have no idea how many. I mean, at one point I owned that in Catan, and that was it. So, and any chance I get, anytime anyone came over, anytime I went anywhere, I was trying to get them to play Dominion with me.
Yeah.
It's always been one of my favorites. You know, I prefer to play it 2-player, just a super quick battle with the other person to score the most points. It's great.
My number 2 is One Night Ultimate Werewolf. This is published by Bezier Games. Who designed that? I'll look at it later. Anyway, this can be run by the app, although at one point I had all the roles memorized in which way they needed to come out that I could close my eyes and just narrate it myself. But everybody's given a role just like Werewolf. Then there's 3 blank roles that are in the center of the table that nobody is. Everybody closes their eyes. Werewolves wake up and look for other werewolves. Close their eyes. Seer wakes up. They get to look at... Everybody, once you find out who you are, you put your tile back in front of you. And it's... and then the Seer can either look at one player's card, or they can look at 2 of the center cards that nobody has that role. And then you have the Troublemaker that can swap 2 people's roles, and now they've switched. You have the Drunk that swaps theirs with somebody else. You have the Robber that takes. You have the Insomniac that peeks at theirs before everybody wakes up. You have a Hunter. You have the Masons. You have quite a few different roles like you would in regular Werewolf. But you go through one night, then you have a discussion period of 5 to 10 minutes. You decide how long. At the end, it's 3, 2, 1, everybody points. Whoever has the majority of people pointing at them, they get lynched. And then you go again. It plays in like 5, 10 minutes, and you play again. And when it first came out, that was our opener and our closer for 417Gamer nights. It's like, hey, we're waiting for people to show up. What are we going to do? Let's do One Night Werewolf. There's 10 of us. There's not enough to break into 2 even games. We got 2 and some stragglers, so let's play this. Then everybody would show up and laugh at us while we're arguing, and then we'd break into our games. And then as we're all like, hey, we don't have a whole lot of time. It's like, 9:15, not enough to get anything else we want to do. Let's do One Night Werewolf, and we'll go home. So I've got over 100 plays of this.
Oh, nice.
Andrea, your number 2.
My number 2 is a 2-player game called Patchwork. When we first started dating and you were trying to teach me how to play games, Patchwork was one of the few 2-player games you had at that time. We have a ton now.
Yeah, we do.
But it is a tile laying game where you're trying to almost like Tetris-shaped pieces where you're trying to cover your board. The more coverage you can get and the better quilt you have built with your patches gives you a better score.
It sure does. That brings us to number 1. My number 1 is The Game. The Game is a simple cooperative game where you have a hand of cards and you are playing to 4 piles. You have 2 piles that are going up from 1 to 99 and 2 piles that are going down from 100 down to 1. On your turn, you must play 2 cards to each of the piles, and they always progressively get bigger or smaller depending on which piles. It's an easy cooperative game, and playing with new people and family, it's something that... It was one of my icebreakers that stayed in my bag for a year and a half. And then I played it at conventions, and I could play it by myself. And I don't count solo plays on BG Stats, but it's one of the few games that I played quite a bit of. Actually, that's not true, because the pencil app dungeon or whatever it is, paper app dungeon, that one I've logged my solo plays because that's the only way you can play it. But that's The Game. Andrea, what's your number one most played game?
My City. And that is because we played the legacy version of My City. It has a regular, everyday version.
Which we played that a few times too.
Yeah, but we played the legacy version with some friends, and that campaign, I don't even remember how many.
It's 3 games per chapter, and it's either 8 or 9 chapters, and I can't remember.
Yeah, and then we played some regular versions as well. So that was one of my first legacy games to play, and
It was a really good experience.
I'd go through and do it again, actually.
Yeah. And Nick, what is your most played game?
My most played game is Seven Wonders.
Ooh.
I have played, I don't even know how many times. And if you count like BGA plays,
yeah.
Oh man, when I was in college in class, I would burn through about 10 games of Seven Wonders every single class.
Yeah.
But even not counting that, just in-person games.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, and always has been one of my favorites. Just such a great card game. Great for bigger groups. It's one of the few like big group games that still gets a little meaty. I mean, it's not a crazy complex game, but there's some meaty stuff that's going on there.
Sure.
And all the different expansions add to it. I've played in tournaments.
I agree and disagree.
You agree and disagree?
On the expansions, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, not every expansion's good.
I overexpanded it to the point I rebought the base and gave somebody else in the group my expanded copy.
Yeah.
I had cities, I had leaders, and when I got the Tower of Babel, it was too much, and I was like, here, you like it way more than I do.
Yeah, definitely.
And I went back down to the base, and I do miss the promos that I had in that, but I'm good.
Yeah, I like cities and leaders. I think they really make it just a bit more of a full game.
So good.
Yep, just love a good drafting game.
Yeah. That was the 7. That was our 7 most played games. Why don't you let us know what your most 7 most played games. Go over to our Instagram. We just changed it to 417Gamer _podcast. Follow us there. Nick, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You do some music here and there.
Yeah.
What's your music under?
Just Nick Fleece. Look me up on anywhere you listen to music. And
yeah, you're on the Bandcamp.
Find it there. Yep, Bandcamp, Apple Music, Spotify, all of that.
If you're with the YouTube page, the 417Gamer YouTube page, your music appears sometimes whenever we do the pictures of the month. We tie that. So we've got a couple of our local friends in the gamer group, and they've graciously let us use their music behind our little video collage.
I appreciate that.
We appreciate it. Nick, thanks very much. We'd like you to come back next episode and maybe tell us what your favorite 7 games are.
You might have to twist my arm for that one, but we'll see.
All right, we'll see. We'll catch you in the next episode. Bye!
The 417 Gamer podcast is recorded and produced by Andrea and Rick Bagwell. The intro music we use, Kind, Gentle, Beautiful Person, and the outro music, Making Up for Last Time, was created by Origami Replica. For links to our show notes, music, and guest links, head over to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Hobby Gaming Network. Until next time, keep gaming in the 417.